Hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Yes, the sun is out. It was tricking us. I was a little sad. But on that note, we're just going to give it a couple of notes so folks can log in. I know it takes a second. So, welcome and thank you for joining us. If this is your first time here, hello, my name is Sadie Uribe, and I'm the media producer for the Los Angeles Regional SBDC. The SBDC is a national program with over 1,000 locations across the country helping to stimulate economic growth through business advising and development. The LASBDC offers no-cost services through funding provided by the U.S. Small Business Administration, SBA, and from the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. It's your tax dollars at work. The Los Angeles Regional SBDC network operates 7 service locations throughout Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. Our services are also offered virtually. We are here to help. We empower small business owners by offering tailored solutions through personalized one-on-one business advising, cutting-edge workshops, and comprehensive programs, all provided at no cost. We are dedicated to supporting your entrepreneurial journey every step of the way. So on that note, good morning, Lori. How are you? I'm very excited. I heard we have some type of music. Am I saying that correctly?
Oh man, we got another fun day. We got a fun day. So let us get started because we have a lot to go over. And as always, I won't let you down, guys. This is going to be fun. Okay, so um it's April. And you know what? We didn't have the show on April Fools. That would have been too much fun. But it's April. Here is my financial literacy lineup, my legal structure lineup, and we are continuing to have Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 o'clock updates on SBA loans, denials, any issues you're having, other fire resources. We'll probably be holding that for another week or so. So tune in to that as well. Sadie, as always, will put all the links. She seems to read my mind. She puts the links in before I even said it. It's pretty amazing. Okay, guys, we got quite a lineup for April, starting with today. So, April 9th, we got David Ronaldo coming back. To those of you who watched the show, man, 2 years ago, probably, David Ronaldo started college Zoom in USC in an entrepreneur class, which I happen to have been his professor at the time. We're talking, I don't even know how long ago, probably over 10 years ago, right? And then it today is a very successful company. I've asked him to come back on. It's a fascinating story. And then I promised I would have an Ask Me Anything. I had to change the date on that, but we're still having it April 16th. It's me. Ask me anything. I am the guest and you are the interviewer. So I'll be put in the hot seat. Okay. Then on April 23rd, I got Tanya Kelly coming on from Double A Solutions. This was a referral from Dahlia, guys. And you guys love Dahlia. And she talks about tax strategies, a good topic. Everybody needs a good tax strategy. So that'll be a fascinating discussion. And then April 30th, this is just a heartwarming discussion. Majestic Bliss Soaps. Marcella started this company 7 years ago with her husband. It's awesome products and just a really heart-touching story. You're going to love that. Okay, going to go over something really quick today. I always talk to you about things I'm experiencing, let's say in the field. Well, due to the fires and helping people with the SBA loans, I've been going into the Secretary of State and checking a lot of status of the companies because I know they do that during the loan process, okay? And what I have seen is an overwhelming amount of people that did not file the statement of information on time and actually didn't even know they need to. I'm talking a ton of people. A majority of these companies are potentially take the risk of becoming suspended, which then you have to pay up the fees. I got to get out of suspension, and when you're in suspension, it's technically illegal to carry it forth with the business. Now, one thing I've also noticed is for whatever reason, could be the Secretary of State's really been lacked on catching up with these. Some of them were past due since 23 and they haven't caught up on them. And part of it is due to the fact that the LLCs is every 2 years. The other part is they change computer systems and also bogged down from everything that's happened in the last 4 years. So now's the time to get it filed and get it right because it goes from $25 to $250. So the due dates on the statement of information is 90 days after you register the business, you first get it started, and then that becomes the date. And then it gets due anytime there's changes to information. And then for a corporation, every year, and for an LLC every other year. And the trick with these dates is it's whatever is your date. Like if it's, March, that's your date. If it's August, that's your date. So they do technically send out reminders, but you don't always get them. And so this is how you can kind of miss it because it's every 2 years on some weird date that's specific to your birthday of the corporation, and you may not have it in your file. Okay. So if that happens, what you want to know is how to at least check the status, how to check the status. So first of all, and Sadie's putting these links in, you can go to this page where you can find out what is the open time that you can fill out the report. So you can fill it out from the first day of August through January to be on time, if you will. So this gives you information about the statement of information, when you have your filing window, etc. And what you can do is you can go into this page, and I suggest everybody with an LLC or corporation does this. Go into this page and type in the name of the company, and um, or you can have the corporation ID, but you can also, if you have the name of the company. So this is a company I started eons ago, terminated, closed. I'm using as example so I don't use somebody else's company live. So if you look at where it shows the company here, if I click on this, a right-hand side, a box comes up, and this box gives me the status. And of course, it's terminated because I shut it down. And like I said, I'm using mine as an example. But over here, what you're going to see is a little thing in red with a little explanation point that says statement of information due. So do put in your company name. Take a look at this page over here, do it consistently, make sure there's no issues. And by the way, guys, you can hit view history and you can see where the initial filing is. You can download your articles of incorporation or organization, however you're filed, and you can download statements of information. Become familiar with this page. Check it often. Okay. So that is my little tidbit of information to try to keep you safe, keep your company from being suspended, and keep you from having to dish out $250 and more if it gets past due and you get it suspended. It's not a good thing. Okay. Now let's go to the excitement of today. I'm so glad to have Adam back. Adam Chapnick is an advisor at the Pasadena SBDC. He is also the general partner at the Chapnick Group, where he mentors early stage startup founders through their journeys from concept to customer. Adam teaches pitching. Isn't that pretty cool? Using his Wow How framework in workshops across the country, and has become known affectionately by founders and investors as the Pitchinator. Adam was a principal at crowdfunding platform Indiegogo, founder of the film distribution aggregator Distribber, and host of the Security Token Academy. He is committed to democratizing access to capital and helping creative entrepreneurs share their vision with the world they serve. Join us as we talk about a whole bunch of things with Adam. Adam, welcome to the show. So glad to have you here today.
The big reveal. Hello, glad to be here. Hi,
I
Lori.
love that, the big reveal. So, hey, I have to go back. It's something that when I read your bio today, because I've read it before, what in the world is host of Security Token Academy? I never noticed that the first time I read it, and I read it and I go, what am I reading? Does anybody else in the audience not know what in the world that means? It sounds really, really impressive, Adam. What
It's
is that?
very niche. It's very niche. Most people in
Okay.
the audience, I would be shocked if anybody knew it. It was a show that was online from 2017 to 2020, all about compliant tokenization of assets, known as security tokens. So you heard about crypto.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Everybody, they have the Bitcoin, you got Ethereum, and then you got the things they affectionately call, I'm going to say a bad word, shit coins, which are the, all the little stupid coins that have no intrinsic underlying value that everybody tries to pump and dump. But the
Right.
more interesting application, well, not more, another interesting application of blockchain and coin technology is tokenization of an asset, meaning you can fractionalize ownership of any asset. And this is being done in like fine art or in real estate. Like you could own a
Okay.
piece of
Okay.
the Empire State Building. But how would you know that you own a piece, and how much do you own, and how would anybody verify that? Tokenized technology makes an immutable record of ownership by fraction on the blockchain forever. So you could own literally a token, which is a piece of code that, but you might have it in a hard drive, like a little external hard drive, a wallet, and you could forever show someone that you have 0.02% ownership of the Empire State Building, for example, if they had fractionalized that and sold it. They do this on different platforms with fine art. So you could own like 2% of a Picasso or something. You might never have the Picasso, but if that person who owns it were to sell it, they would sell it, and you would have a claim to 2% of proceeds.
Well,
So
okay, now I know what you're talking about. And actually, IRS has been delving deep, because of being my
yeah,
enrolled agent, right? I get all these different things from IRS, and they're calling it the digital assets and trying to capture all of this stuff. So they're probably going after tokens as well.
well, this is we're already off in a whole different
I
direction,
know,
but
I'm
I
sorry.
love it. I will talk about it. So
Fascinating. So how is
I,
this play into it?
yeah, IRS has been really good and really bad about this in a little bit, as
Oh
has
yeah.
the SEC also, where they're catching up. It's hard. It's new stuff, and that's not their background, so they're catching up. But the problem originally was whether to, is it the Howey definition? Is it Howey Act? I'm not saying it right.
Yeah, I
There's,
think you are. And like I said, I'm getting a ton of barrage. I get a ton of emails from the IRS because of being an enrolled agent, right? But in the last like 7 months, year or something, probably a year, every day I get an email about these digital assets and the new IRS rules. So yeah,
right.
continue,
So, but there's a digital asset, and that would be like Bitcoin is a digital
right?
asset. Although it was originally conceived as a digital currency, it's now
Right,
become a reserve, like gold. Like it's
right.
not, people aren't using Bitcoin to buy things, they're just owning it for its value and hoping it goes up. So it's an asset, right? And then how do you regulate that and how do you tax that? That's its own set of questions. But what I'm talking about is fractionalizing not ownership of non-digital assets. So it's really like the building or the artwork isn't digital, right?
Right, right.
But the record of ownership is digital. So it's imagine there's a ledger, but
Yep.
it's on blockchain, instead of on like an Excel document. And the blockchain keeps the permanent record of fractionalized ownership of the non-digital asset. So that's a totally different thing from digital assets. It's a mechanism that is totally useful and fantastic for tracking ownership of anything, and therefore it's very useful in real estate for like chain of title. If anybody's ever bought a house or stuff like that, you have to go through this like title search, and it's like, who owns it? Does somebody have a lien on this thing? And that it's so like weird. There's like files of paper in like Irvine or someplace that you have to find. But with the blockchain, everything can be instantly knowable, and also with smart contracts, which is, and forgive me for going like way off into left field on this, but blockchain has a technology with this, especially with Ethereum and some other things, which are these mechanisms called smart contracts, which just means, ooh, look at that, my Zoom just zoomed on me.
I know, I saw that. Hello.
I don't know why that happened, but I guess hello. So the smart contract, which is super cool, is a mechanism that the code that is the token is by which it's programmed. So it has rules. So for example, there's anti-money laundering rules or KYC, know your customer rules, in allowing different people to invest in different things. And those are rules that the SEC and FINRA have for governing who's allowed to invest in things and who's not. Well, right now, or before a smart contract, you'd have to do whatever they tell you to do, like a person. You have to get on the phone and verify things, or go on the internet and then have them send documents and stuff. But with a smart contract, you might be able to geo-fence an investment. So it means that the code itself, the token itself, will not release if the investment comes from any of these 32 countries that have been called terrorist countries, or it won't come, right? So you don't have to do anything. It just doesn't work. So it removes this entire layer of human effort in that case. And then also it's great for a million other applications. There's a client that I am working with who's using smart contracts to help crowdfunding, if you're familiar with crowdfunding.
Yep, totally
You know,
familiar. Yep.
yeah, so like the Main Street investors can invest in, I won't say what they're doing, but in these wonderful, alternative assets. But one of the benefits of having a smart contract enabled mechanism is that each investor gets a percentage of the first dollar of revenue. They don't get the profit at the end. They get any dollars that transact and come into the company's account. Every single investor gets 0.0 something 1%, or depend, pro rata on what they invest. They get a piece of the revenue from first dollar. So it's very attractive for an investor because they're immediately starting the payback procedure as soon as the company starts collecting any revenue, not 7 years later when they exit.
You know
So
what's interesting about that? That hits on several things, and I may have missed a little bit, so you can say no, Lori, on that. But there's three things. I'm going to go two. Of course of all, and I say this with a little bit of humor. As you start talking about getting a little piece, I think of Ponzi schemes because I've been in finance all my life. You start thinking that, and then you think of Herbalife and stuff. Those other things where everybody gets a little piece of the pie, and then
well,
that being the big question. So here's the big question, Adam, that I was thinking. When does it transfer to income? So when is it recorded as income? That's where the IRS starts trying to find when is it considered income versus just a trade per like. I guess that's the fascinating part of this. And then
well, in
and
this,
then I'll
yeah.
let you branch into your bio, and then we'll let you go from there to, and how do you know all this stuff? What have you been doing that allows you to speak in all this foreign language? What are you? Are you from this planet? So I'll let you
I
take it from there.
that's a good question. I mean, I've done so many things, and that's part of why I love doing what we do. And I do what we do with the SBDC, where I get to meet all these amazing different business owners and founders, and that's really fun. But for 20 years, I've been doing that. Either I started one business in this thing because I fell into it, which was in like film, and then another business because I fell into it, which was in crowdfunding, and then another business in commercial real estate. So, and then each one had its own like painful learning curve where I went from not knowing things I had better hurry up and learn to becoming an expert in only one thing and knowing nothing else, and then kind of being a generalist in each little vertical. And then they all start to knit together, and that's what makes it fun. But with the crypto, that was actually a very natural outshoot of crowdfunding. So I did Indiegogo, which was rewards-based crowdfunding.
I remember
Which,
that.
yeah, so rewards-based crowdfunding means you can raise money and you can offer like a prize. It's not an investment in the company, but it's like, hey, if you give me, $100 to make my movie, well, you'll get, a ticket, 2 tickets to the premiere. Or it might be if you give me $1,000 to make my movie, you can be in it. Or, like they're rewards. They're non-monetary. They're not linked to the performance of the company. They're just like fun participation in rewards that people do want, and they give money in exchange for those. The next thing, so the natural next step of that was in 2012, there was a thing called the Jobs Act. And don't make me say what that stood for, jobs, I forget. But it was the thing that made crowdfunding investable. So it made equity-based crowdfunding possible. It allowed the crowd up to a limit to invest in things and get not just a t-shirt or tickets to the movie, but actual profit participation or equity ownership. So once that was possible, I was like, well, I know everything about crowdfunding. Now, if you just add equity, I know everything about the part that makes people, like the crowdfunding part. But quickly,
Right.
because I got into an equity crowdfunding for real estate, I had to learn about compliant
Okay.
marketing,
Yep.
right, for the SEC. Oh, and then like 506B versus 506C, which is
Yep.
about like, are you an accredited investor or not? And some of this I kind of knew, but I had to learn it really fast because I was in charge of the marketing. And I was like, wait a minute, I have to comply? I can't just say things? No, you can't say anything. Like, and that was its own pain. And so that,
And also, if you get that wrong, you could go to jail. you know, a
Yeah.
lot of that stuff. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't realize that. See, I was playing in that same world from a different way because around that time I was in the banking, the investment banking, and I was in the CFO stuff. And I actually, you know, just through my LA crazy world, I better not be telling these when I'm going to have an Ask Lori Anything show coming up because the audience will take notes and I'll be put on the spot. But I actually knew a couple people that went to jail, you know, during that time period because I was heavily involved in the LA scene, and they went to jail for taking money from a non-accredited investor, which is
Yeah.
illegal, selling
Yeah.
stock from startups, which
And
they didn't even realize they were doing it because they weren't on
right.
top of this. So what you're
Yeah.
saying is actually really important because we could have been interviewing you from jail.
Yeah, well, really. I mean, that's a whole other topic
Yeah.
of like how stupid things are in terms of regulation. Like the things that get policed and acted on, like versus the things that don't. I mean, are absolutely mind-bending, but that's a whole different complaint, you know, like soapbox that I have. But yes, that's the thing, is that you quickly have to learn because there's teeth on breaking those rules. So, but so once I was in the compliant investing, you know, subjugate to SEC and FINRA. So then there was things like what I was just, you know, name check, was AML and KYC, which is anti-money laundering and know your customer.
Yep.
Those are part of that, what you're talking about. Don't do that and go to jail. So like you take you take money from someone who's in North Korea or is like flagged as a terrorist sympathizer, you know, that's you're on the hook. And
FinCEN, right? FinCEN, you would know.
FinCEN, right?
And
Yeah,
real well. Yeah, FinCEN would be knocking on your door.
that's real, right? So then once the crypto came around, there was a year in 2017 that people may remember where like the frenzy was around ICOs, you know, initial coin offerings. And like you were talking about pyramid schemes and we're talking about jail and we're talking about that. Well, that was a year where that just boom erupted, happened. Everybody saw, like, well, those who understood how it worked saw how you could just dupe literally millions of people around the world in weeks and be in and out before even, I mean, SEC, those guys didn't even understand anything. They didn't understand the first thing of what a coin even was. So that whole year was full of billionaires that had made their money in weeks by fleecing people. But what was interesting to me wasn't, what I was saying is sorry, I'm gonna say that bad word again, shit coins. That was just what we call pump and dump, right? Where somebody would announce, I'm making Atom Coin and it's going to be awesome. And then, right, and it's going to go from here to 15,000%. And yeah, look, this famous guy says it too. And they pay some famous guy because there's no rules yet. And that's what was happening there. But that's not at all where I was going with the crowdfunding. That was like, there was a coin, there's a natural outgrowth from compliant equity crowdfunding into compliant tokenization of assets. So like that's where I was focusing. And so they call them security tokens because they were tokens based that are treated like securities, like SEC.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that was the part that I stuck with. The ICOs, while I did host on that show some people who had some things to do with it, that wasn't really what we were interested in. It was more about like, how is this new technology of compliant tokenization going to affect industries and, you know, verticals and things? And it's because even now it really hasn't quite hit with the promise that it should, which is that those layers that are so unsexy and so like, you know, boring, like, you know, chain of title or like those kinds of things. Like no one loves talking about chain of title, you know, but like those are going to be totally replaced by blockchain. And similarly, the opportunities that come when a regular guy like me can invest in, you know, these like AAA grade long-term commercial real estate opportunities that we wouldn't ever even have access to, but that are like so much more likely to make a lot of money than crappy investments that I get you know, that Main Street gets access to. It makes a big difference. And so that's where I was interested. So,
I guess this is where I'm supposed to say, So the views of the audience on Small Biz Talk are their own. We are not here to provide investing advice, and all
Right.
of the I'm just laughing, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
no,
always
but
love talking with you, Adam, because it brings me back to those days when I was involved in all of that and the tech stuff and all that crazy stuff going on. I got involved once again from the banking investment side, in the film industry, the music industry, the entertainment industry, and I'm like, I think this is just crazy stuff. I started,
yeah,
meeting these top producers and all this stuff, not my world. And I finally was like, I don't like businesses where somebody is at the top and you go to bed and they're at the bottom. When companies fail, you slowly don't sell widgets. CFOs got enough time to plan because CFOs don't like, surprises, right? That's the
yeah.
trade of CFO. And I'd be like, okay, I went to bed and everybody was popular at the top and I woke up and they're not. How can that be? I was like, I don't like this game at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's the least of what's terrible about the music industry and the
Yeah.
film industry.
Yeah,
They're
I
so
played
bad.
just enough to get myself out of it and say, and I didn't intend to be in it. I got brought in because of my financial banking background. I got sucked into it from being in the LA scene and everything. Well, that
They were
is,
lucky to have you.
yeah, I guess so, but it was definitely a crazy time. It's so, one other comment I want to make, and then let's get into pitching and stuff, is that when I was going through, especially my 30s and my 40s, I was just dabbling in many ways. I didn't see it as dabbling, but I went after what excited me, and it always was about business finance. And then I was considered kind of a generalist, and nobody wanted you to be a generalist, right? You need to say, what do you specialize in? What do you specialize in? And you had to figure out how to be a generalist because that's what you love to do, but act as if you're not, because the market didn't like generalist, right? And so I was seen as, scattered. And then as I got older, it was like, oh, you have a blending of so many skills and you're so wise. And it's like all of this. I'm like, no, I've always been someone that just is very passionate following my interest. And then I made sense out of it. And now I've become so wise. So isn't it interesting how you age long enough and you can make a good story out of anything?
Yeah, amen, sister. Oh my
It's
gosh.
it's so true. So let's talk about the Pitchinator. And I know we got everybody's total attention on the show already with our conversation, but I'm just going to say what's happening in the investing world. Who gets invested in? What stage of development are the companies in? And let's talk about the big elephant in the room. Hey, Adam, I'm going to create a company. I'm going to sell something online. It may be a service, and I'm going to get investors to start it. Okay, can you help me? So you take
Yes.
it from there. Go anywhere. Yes, go anywhere you want with what I just said.
So, okay, so I mean, it's tempting to try to corral that whole question into an answer, but it would be misleading
Right.
to do so.
You
And
unpack it for us.
the reason I say that is because, as you know, we share a lot of cynicism, let's say, about in the investment world, and pessimism even. And that's because, they've earned a shitty reputation. Oh, said the bad word again, sorry.
That's
But
okay. That was the way it should have been said. So amen
so
on that one.
yes, institutional investors have, because they behave badly, earned a bad reputation, and that reputation that's earned, that is deserved, is that you've heard the term, what do we call it? VC, was it shark, vulture
Vulture,
capitalism.
vulture. The word's
Like,
vulture.
forgetting
Yes.
my word. So yeah, vulture capitalism. They've
Vulture
earned that
capital.
because they are looking out only for themselves, and they will say and do all kinds of things in order to get an advantage for themselves at the expense of people who can least afford them doing that to them, which are, founders who have often scraped together just enough to get to where they're able to have the meeting with an investor, and and they're totally not respected. And that happens. But that is a very specific slice of the pie of what we call investment. And so it's it's not right to say that it's terrible, it's hard. It is hard. It's not right to say it's terrible in trying to go out and get investment for a company. But what's important to understand is that you can divide the stages and the slices of what it means to go out for investment, both vertically and horizontally. And what I mean is, the more important one is actually horizontally. And so that's by stage, okay? So they're different investors, totally different investors for different stages of life that a company is in. So, and those stages are governed by the risk profile that you offer to an investor. So if you have not de-risked your idea at all, you are at the lowest place. Now, lowest meaning earliest. Doesn't mean
You
lowest.
might want to tell our audience what I know what you mean by de-risk.
Yes,
Why don't we walk through
absolutely.
risk? That's a good
Yeah,
term for our audience to
yeah.
understand.
It's very important as a concept, the idea of risk and de-risk.
Yep.
So risk, what it just means is, from the investor's standpoint, he or she is considering, if I give you the money you're asking for, how likely or unlikely is it that you can do what you say you're going to do from here forward? And so obviously, the less likely it is, the higher the risk it is to give you the money. You can de-risk your request for funds by accomplishing more along your timeline that you project. So what, Lori mentioned that I always say, I will help people get from concept to customer. So you've heard stories about guys who get like, they're at like a bar and they write on a napkin, it's, like the Uber of surgery, and like, great, there's $1 million and it's done, right? So that's nothing. That's a napkin and an idea, but it's not nothing, right? Those things happen, and I don't think, thank God, Uber of surgery has ever been funded. Thank God. But let's just say that were the thing. How would it be possible that at the earliest phase, where there is literally nothing done but a person saying Uber of surgery, and there's another guy sitting there who has millions of dollars and needs to invest them, what would have to be true for that guy to be like, I'm going to give you $1 million to get that going? Well,
it's your father. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was
it's your father. That's one. Absolutely correct. Number two is the only thing there is the guy with the napkin, right? Now, if that guy was a surgeon who had started a rideshare company and exited,
totally in. Yeah.
Right? Well, I might give that guy $1 million. He already knows how to build a rideshare company like Uber, and he's a surgeon. That's a perfect guy to give $1 million to with nothing to make the Uber of surgery.
And speaking of which, that's what happened in the tech boom, because you had people who achieved something and then they got the $1 million immediately on an idea because they had the historical record of achieving it. So you're absolutely correct. Right. I remember seeing that.
Yeah. So there's a term that has come into a little bit of fashion in the last year or two, which it's a de-risking metric, and it's called founder market fit. And so what that, you've heard of product market fit, maybe you've heard that term?
Yep. I never heard of founder though. Yep.
Yeah. So product market fit is an idea where it's a later stage. You've already got your product. It's already in the market. It's probably, you've got money coming in, but you're struggling with marketing, and then suddenly, bing, you change one thing, and you're like, oh no, it's not. We're not going to call it, a golf cart. We're going to call it a people mover, and suddenly, boom, everybody gets it, and now you get the phones ringing. You hit product market fit.
Gotcha.
That's later, but founder market fit is a thing where super early stage investors are using it as a must-have. Some funds will only invest in ideas if, like, it's what we just described about the guy at the bar. If the founder fits the market because of past experience or credentials, or is a member of the customer base. So if the founder has the pain that he is solving, that counts as a founder market fit. If the founder was the guy who had a rideshare company and is a surgeon, that would be founder market fit. That's something you don't have to have, but it counts as a de-risking element. So anyway, back to what I was saying. So you got horizontal slicing and you got vertical slicing, right? So the stage, super early, we call it friends and family is the earliest. So
Oh, I call it friends, family, and fools. Sorry, keep
yes,
going.
yeah, well, for good for good reason. Because why? Why fools? Well, that's perfect. Because why would the super early stage be called fools? Because it's not de-risked. It's
Right,
all risk. You'd have to be a fool to invest in something with all risk, right?
right.
So that's a perfect thing to say for what we're talking about. The next stage after friends and family, right? You've got angels. And angels are individuals. They're not institutional investors with, like a whole process and all this stuff. They're people who are also generally going, they're not all on gut, but they are generally more risk tolerant because they're coming in so early. They want to be in early. Why? Because they generally only have about 20,000, 25,000 bucks, maybe 50,000 that they're willing to put in. They're an individual who's giving their own money. So if they're going to put that little in, they want to put it in as early as they can so that it has the biggest percentage of your valuation. And your valuation will be the lowest the earliest because you've proven the least. So
Yep.
therefore, risk tolerance high for angels. That doesn't mean some angels might run you through the same due diligence that other people would, but more often than not, you'll find angels who understand, we've only got, a couple of guys, a clickable wireframe, or sort of a prototype that doesn't really work yet, but we think if we had another $50,000, we could get it to working. They'd come in then. So many angels.
So on the angels, I used to hang around in the angel circles and the angel meetings quite a lot, right? I was in with all that clique at one day. But there was an angel investor, and I like the way he put this. We were in a meeting talking one day, and you're talking about the prototype, but he was talking about what he looked for, and he looked for three things, and he identified it this way, and I thought it was so clearly spoken. He said to me, Lori, because he liked products, he says, I'm looking for a company that already has a product sold because, and this is not that statement that I thought was really interesting. It was the statement after. He goes, if they're already sold a product, he goes, I don't care how many of them, just that they sold some, because it proves three things to me. One, there is at least somewhat of a demand because the product was purchased. Secondly, the product was purchased at that selling price, so it gives me idea to figure out the profit margins at that selling price. And third, it let me know that the manufacturers or the managers could at least produce a product. He goes, when I see that they sold a couple, I can say those three things are met, then I want to get in the game if I feel like I can expand. So that's just another way of saying what you're saying that I thought was so eloquently put.
So those are all brilliant metrics. Those are typically later stage metrics
Right.
because how would you possibly make a product, take it to market, sell it with no money? It's very hard to do. You might have been able to bootstrap it, and surely there are angels who have all different, think, I won't invest until this or that or the other
Right,
thing.
right. They
And
were
those
more
are
late
all
stage.
great. Those are all, if you're thinking of being an angel investor, do that. Those are great metrics. But typically, or I shouldn't say typical. It's very common for a company not to have any customers, even through seed round, where they have a concept and for whatever, a service, a product, software, and they've hit some milestones and they need more money to complete the proposition of getting it into the market. Now, what that you bring up is an excellent tangent that I'm going to go on. So there are two ways that people start businesses. If I were going to be like super general, you could bucket businesses into two ways of starting, and one is easy, and one is harder. And one
Okay.
I call inside out, and the other I call outside in.
Yeah.
And inside out, hard. Outside in, easy. What does it mean? I work with tons of PhD uh, students or recent PhD recipients who have spent 6, 8 years at a lab bench looking at a microscope doing something truly world changing. Like they've changed the way some microprotein interact with some T cell so that cancer therapies are more this than that or more that than this. obviously that's great, right? Because it's cancer therapy working better. But once they lift their head and they look out into the world and they say, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur with this work I've done. Well, what they have is something they did, and now they have to go out into the world. They have to go inside with the thing they did and go out and be like, I have this thing I did. Does anyone want it? Now,
Gotcha.
surely someone will want it because it makes cancer therapies work better. But who, right? Is it the cancer patient? Is it the pharmaceutical company? Is it doctors? Is it who? Is it a hospital? Like, there's a lot to learn, right? When you're a PhD student, you don't know. Like, I don't know where to start, right? So it's not that it won't work eventually, probably, if you've got the right person, but there's a gap between I'm done with my thing that's great and now I have to sell it. There's a gap because I don't know how, who wants it, how to say it. I don't know. Do I say I have a really effective protein, or do I say there's a medicine, or do I say I have a methodology, or do I say, what do I say? I don't know. Do I start a clinic? I don't know. I don't know. So there's a lot to answer. Now, outside in, and if you go with you couple that with founder market fit, and the last attribute of founder market fit that I mentioned, which is if you're someone who has the pain that you're solving, that would be founder market fit. But let's say, now it doesn't work with the PhD guy because, like it or not, he's in the lab for 6 years. He's not going to like change what he's researching. But let's say you're a founder. But let's say you're not yet a founder. Here's an example. And maybe you work in a dentist's office. I don't know. And maybe you notice that there's something that they do every single day that is just not efficient, that it doesn't work as well as if it just had this one other thing. Like, I have to whiten people's teeth, but we're always forcing them to wait 45 minutes while I don't even know how whitening happens, but I'm making something up. But like, there's some process that you see is too expensive, is painful, nobody likes it. And you could do 2 times as many if you just did this one other thing. If you could just develop a thing that does X. You're like, you know what? I'm going to start a company that does X. Well, now you know something really hyper specific. Dentist's office who makes lots of money on teeth whitening can make twice as much money on teeth whitening if they have widget X. Now I just raise money for widget X and I go into market and I know exactly who I'm calling. Dentists who do teeth whitening. And I know how much they spend, and I know how much I save, and I know all that stuff. That business is much easier to start, right?
So
Where
really the second example, it's finding the pain and already knowing the market. The first one is having something, but you really don't know exactly how it applies in the market. And so I get what you're saying, because it's true. If you look at 2 buckets, most companies fit into one or the other. They either saw a way to do something better in simple terms, or they created something and tried to figure out how to sell it. And I always say, being the creator, this doesn't go across all platforms, but in many of them, being the creator is the worst position, because you got to teach the market why you even want the product. Like the first time they tried to bring out, we're old enough to, I think you're old enough to know what I'm talking about. There was no cell phone. They had to convince people that they even needed a cell phone, and people go, why do I need to carry a phone around with me? So the first money gets all eaten up just trying to convince the market that there is a desire to have this new thing or a need.
well, right. I mean, and that's that. Yeah, then it can be that can be worse or better, like a lot or a little. But yeah, but writ large, if you are a product in search of a market, you have more work to do than if you have a pain point in search of a solution that you already have a solution for a pain point you know exists. And
Let me
so,
ask you this, Adam, if we can extrapolate on this for our audience. I'm sure that, or I believe, I should say, I believe that many in our audience that are already existing in business could benefit from kind of taking a little bit of your template, and you'll customize it to this question, and saying, what can they do for introspection this afternoon in their own company to have a better understanding of how they're placing themselves, the words they're using, how they're recognizing themselves. You know what I'm trying to say? This is kind of a little test for everybody in the audience to perk up their ears and go, I'm going to sit down with a cup of coffee later and do some introspection and try to see where I'm maybe missing the dot on how I'm defining myself in my marketplace.
so that's an excellent question. that's a different question, but an excellent one, and one that I do all the time. So happy to do it. So, okay. So that what you're talking about is something that you mentioned before everybody got on, where it's the simple question of what do you do? And how good are you at answering that question, right? So like, and it's basically, you've heard of the elevator pitch, right? We all have heard, maybe we haven't all. I mean, the idea of an elevator pitch, for those who haven't already heard that, I assume everybody has, but if you haven't, it's the idea that you're at some place like a conference and you know what you need is an investor, and it's a place where there might be lots of investors, and you get on the elevator from your room to go down to breakfast, and boink, lo and behold, in comes an investor. And so the doors close, and he's like, "Oh, hey, how you doing? Good. How you doing? Good. What do you do?" And you have until the elevator gets to the lobby to answer that in a way that I'm just going to say works. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to lead the witness on that. So that challenge of answering the question, what do you do, in a way that works is so much harder than people give it credit for. And I always refer to, there's a quote that's been attributed to Abraham Lincoln. I don't know that he really said it, but it feels like he would have. And he said, I would have written, I apologize, I would have written a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time.
I thought Shakespeare wrote that. Or no,
See?
no, Mark Twain. I'm sorry, I thought Mark Twain. Anybody in the
See?
audience? I thought Mark Twain
There
said
you
that.
go.
Nobody in the audience can tell me.
Abraham
I love
Twain
that quote.
Shakespeare.
Yep, I
I
say
believe it
that
was.
all the time. I say that all the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Right. So that principle is extremely in play, very much in play, when it comes to having at ready an answer to what do you do. And it's so fundamental, because that work that you would do to answer that in a powerful way will filter into all of the things that you were just saying, Lori, about like how do we, doing introspection, like how am I answering, the market, about communicating to the market what we do. So I do a whole like hour and a half long workshop on like just this, and then it was mentioned in the bio called Wow How, and I will give you, it's 10:48, so I'll give you a 2-minute encapsulation of it. Basically, it boils down to, well, the first thing to understand is what I make all my clients put on their wall or on the computer or on a sticky note somewhere next to their workspace is the phrase, features tell, comma, benefits sell.
Sadie, get that in the chat.
Features tell, comma, benefits sell. That is a mantra that if you absorb nothing else of what we say today and you just live that, your business will be like 50% more successful than it will be if you don't do that. Okay.
Then explain more, please.
So yes. So what does that mean? Features are how you do something, what it is, how big it is, how fast it is, what it's made of, the process. That's a feature. A benefit is how a customer's life changes from painful to pleasant as a result of using your thing. Benefits sell. People buy things for benefits, right? They want their life to change for the better after using something. They don't buy features, twin overhead cam. They don't buy them. They buy, I want my neighbor to be jealous of me from my car, or I want to get hot chicks, right? That's what they buy. And the feature is something their brain uses to say yes to their emotional desire for a benefit. And when I say they, I mean we all do this. We're humans, right? So understanding that, wow before how. So anytime you're trying to persuade anybody of anything, catch yourself if you find yourself saying how you do something. What do you do? Oh, I build trucks with twin overhead cams. No. What do you do? Oh, I help I help construction companies move twice as much freight, and I don't know what to say, the benefit of what a truck does. It's I help more more cargo get moved to save money, for construction companies. That's what I do. I don't build trucks. I help customers. So if you want to do a inventory of how you're talking, what you first have to do is look at what you do and identify for whom do you do it as specifically as you can. That's your ideal client profile, your ICP. Know that person. Now, that's a whole other conversation of how to go into knowing that person, but you may just know it, right? And what are the top 3 pain points that they have? Takes too long to do something. There's no easy way to do something. There's a middleman. It's too expensive. Whatever the main pain points around what you do. And those are called, well, we call them hot buttons, but you can just call them pain points. Let's say there's 3 pain points. Takes too long. Well, let's just say bad ones, but takes too long, too expensive, and too confusing. Okay, so then what you do is you say, well, what would 3 benefits be that their life would look like if you solved those 3 pain points? So it takes too long, you'd say fast, right? Too expensive, affordable. And what was the third thing I said? Takes too long, too expensive, and I forgot the third thing I said. Too confusing. So the third thing would be like simple, right? So you want your wows to communicate how fast, affordable, and simple their life will be.
Okay,
We'll
so
talk about
I've been listening, right? And
Yeah.
I was so inspired. I rewrote my tagline.
Yay.
Okay,
What'd you
ready?
got?
What here?
Yeah, let's
Okay,
hit it.
because I was listening to you and I was rewriting. So I was listening, talking, and writing. So it's maybe not good. Ready? But I never wrote it like this. You ready? So
Okay,
this is where
yes.
you can pick at it
I
and
love
tell
it.
me. Okay, here we go. I
Ready.
help companies become financially successful by teaching a CFO level understanding of your numbers.
I love
Did I
it.
get the
Yeah.
credit? What do you think? I
Yeah.
never wrote it
Yeah.
that way.
So what's great? I'll tell you what's great.
Okay.
So in there you have financially successful. That's a benefit.
Okay.
CFO level understanding of your numbers are great. The part that's a how is teaching. Now
Yep,
that's fine. That's totally fine because you're emphasizing your benefits, right? I help getting what I forgot saying the first part.
I help companies become financially successful by
Okay,
teaching a
financially successful.
CFO level of numbers.
Right. So those are benefits, but you could bet you could do better. Let's
Okay, yep.
just workshop.
Right. Yes, let's work with this.
So financially successful is good because it's a benefit. But what does that mean? If you help to a company, is it is it what does that
Well,
mean? Is it
I go
to
back into my
improve their
old
bottom line?
I
Is it
go back, yeah. I go into, providing shareholder value, but I'm not gonna go there anymore. But meet your personal and professional goals.
okay, but
Yeah.
I would suggest that what you want, so if possible, and I don't know that this because I don't know exactly what the service is that you're you're pitching, but
I
what is
don't
the
either.
service?
I'm just playing.
Okay. So financially successful is good because people do want generally to be financially successful. So that's good. But like what you want, like A plus, is if I can envision literally what happens after I use you. I'm financially successful. I mean, that might be good enough because everybody just even
Once
in their
that
own goals are general about finances and success, like lots of money might be fine because that's kind of what we all want. But if it's a certain way or kind of thing that kind of outcome that you create, like is it we help we help a certain kind of company get a certain level of profitability, like we help early stage startups reach a million plus ARR, or like we help early stage companies get to
interesting about
profitability, or
Yeah, and what you're saying, and it goes into exactly what you're saying. Years ago, when I did CFO turnaround, of course, I was always saying help reach profitability, shareholder value. That was my speak, right? But goes into exactly what you're saying here, and you're hitting the nail on the head. When I switched over to small businesses, I started like trying to talk about shareholder value and profitability, and small businesses are like, "What are you talking about?" So I created this webinar. Well, it was on site. There was not the webinars. It was a seminar. What was that word that we used to do, Adam? Seminar. I did a seminar and I wanted small businesses to come, and I used this profitability and shareholder value, right? I finally rewrote just the heading, just the heading. Do you go to bed at night worried your company will fail? And
Yeah, exactly.
suddenly I got a ton of people because that's what they worried about. That's what they worried
Right.
about.
So that's a tactic. That's a separate. It's a sister tactic of what we're talking about by bringing up the pain and then solving it. Like Chris Rasmussen in the chat, I think half tongue in cheek, says Lori helps people afford Lambos by knowing their numbers. Now that could be great depending on your target market. Now it probably is too like crypto bro, probably for your market, but maybe not. Like it might, if that literally is who you serve, and they're people who want Lambos and just are like, I would love, I know I could get a Lambo because I make so much money, but I'm always losing it. Like maybe that is your thing. You can hire us and you'll have a Lambo, and because you'll know your numbers. That could be a kind of a pitch, and that's part of the work, is to understand the lingo, the vocabulary that resonates with your ICP, ideal client profile.
Yeah, and I think that's what we taught in our time is we really went through how hard it is and how hard you have to play with this and why it's so, so important to get the wording correct. Really, today we've gone everything from your cool past with all this really fascinating conversation with crypto and tokens and security tokens. And I want to come back and ask if I can own a piece of the universe, of course, because that's how I think. I think big. Then we went into the whole process of investment and how that's got all its aspects, and talking about whether you created something and you're selling it outside trying to figure out where to put it, or you see a pain and you're bringing it inside, and then ended with this whole necessity of getting this right and the message right. It really goes to show, Adam, that business, I always say this, and this is going to be the simplest thing I've said so far, business is complicated.
Yeah, right. Right. So much of what we end up doing, and what I end up doing, is trying to identify a component, a slice, a part of what you dream to focus on. Because what you're saying, it's like there's so many variables that we cannot see when we start that will kill you. And that's why the failure rate of small business, just like in a giant sense, is so high. But when you're able to do the work of like, okay, well, okay, so I want to, be a company that does X, Y, and Z. Well, what if I just did X? And what if I just didn't just do X for people, but I did it for women over 30? Because that's the people who really want this thing. And then not just women over 30 in the US, but what if I started with women over 30 in the US who use this in this way? And then you have your universe gets real small for a minute. You start there, but suddenly you've cut out all of the variables that come with trying to serve different ages, different genders, different product groups, and your marketing gets tight, and your knowledge set about that target group gets very percentage-wise high, right? You might have the same amount of knowledge, but you
And
now know 70% of what you need to know.
Yeah, and that is so important because you have scarce resources, you have scarce
Right.
marketing dollars, you want the biggest bang for the buck. I mean, we could have you come on and actually just speak on that aspect alone
Yeah.
because I feel like too many people use that old expression, throw spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks.
You're right.
That's not effective in small companies with limited resources.
No, right. That's
Okay,
resource.
we got a minute. We're going to go over a minute. Can we put Adam on the line, Sadie? What do you think? Should we do it?
I've been like, I saw the smile, Lori. I saw
Yeah,
the
you
smile
knew
pop
I was
up, and I was
coming.
like,
You knew
here
I
we
was
go.
setting
Here we
this
go.
up. Okay, I can't help it, Adam. You got to show us your other skill that you demonstrated before to give us any remaining last remarks. Adam, you got to do it for us. Okay, guys, you ready? Adam, bring it on. Any live
Are
acid
you
remarks,
you
bring it
want
on.
you want a
So,
jingle
when
for
you're
your
a guest, don't do something before the show because I will pull it in.
are
Go
you
Adam,
you
go
want
time.
a jingle?
Yes, here we go, guys. Give us your final words, Adam.
Oh gosh, let's see here. I think we were saying we need a jingle for the Small Biz Talk podcast, right?
Go
Yeah.
for it.
I didn't tune the guitar today. Small Biz Talk. Small Biz Talk. It's not how you talk, it's how you walk. You listen to Lori squawk on Small Biz Talk.
I felt that one. I felt that one.
All right, that is great. You got to bring somebody back on the show that plays the guitar, puts on a cowboy hat, and sings a tune at the ending.
Come
Adam,
back soon, folks. Come back soon, y'all.
I love having you on the show because it's just so fascinating. You and I can go off on these tangents, but they're interesting. And I can tell from the comments in the chat, people find it interesting too. Do make sure you get to everyone when you make comments because I get to read these wonderful things and nobody else gets to read them. But, seriously, now, Adam, also, correct me if I'm wrong, do you also offer webinars through PCC?
Occasionally, yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. I do work. Oh, I think we call them workshops once in a while.
Workshop,
They're not.
whenever
They're
you
better.
have
They're
coming
even.
up.
They're more interactive than webinars because it's a Zoom that we can all be in.
Perfect. When you have one coming up, let us know and we'll advertise it on the show.
Great.
But
Yeah. Sure.
yeah, because we want to make sure anybody that wants to hone in their message, learn more about early stage investing, what they need to do to prepare, or Bitcoin, to be able to reach out to you because
Yeah.
basically
Not so much Bitcoin.
I do.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to say that. Not on the Bitcoin. I had to throw that in because that was
But
too much fun.
yeah. No, I mean, I know a little, but I would hate to advertise myself as a Bitcoin expert. I'm not.
No, but seriously, when it comes to starting companies, getting your pitch down, getting things together, understanding a trajectory for your idea, that's what it really is understanding the trajectory for your product or idea. That's where you really shine. And so through the PCC, people can reach you. Adam's put his personal email in, so feel free to reach out to Adam and have him sing you a song or tell you more about
Oh,
any
you know what? Sign up on pitchinator.com for still a wait list. We're gonna have a prototype soon. So that's a thing, that's an AI that's going to be a trainer to get your own pitch deck built. And you can put in your email address and it'll notify you when it's ready. And it'll probably start off free because I'm going to be testing it. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome.
pitchinator.com.
I'm going to have to sign up and see if it can come up with a better pitch than the one I wrote while listening to you.
Yeah, I don't know, but well, someday it will. We'll see.
Someday. Well, Adam, thank you again. Thank you for coming back on. Always a joy, always a lot of fun. Sadie's going to stay behind so you can get my information, you can get Adam's information, or you can provide anything that you want to say. So thank you once again. Thank you, everybody in the chat. I can see Adam, they're all in to looking for the link for Pitch Deck. So we'll make sure we get all that information out to you. Adam's going to put it in real quick before I sign him off. Throw it in there for everybody.
Oh, Lori, and you also got a shout out for being on the news yesterday.
I did. Oh my God. I haven't even seen. Yes, I was interviewed by a news channel. I didn't see what words they said on my behalf. You're going to have to send it to me. Whoever said that, email me so I can see because I got interviewed by a reporter, and I've done that before and they never quite write the words you say. So I want to see what's said. But thank you. Yes, I'm getting so famous. My head's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So who
Well
knows?
deserved. Well
Who
deserved.
knows? He knows. Okay, we got to go. We're having too much fun today. Thank you so much for the frequent flyers that are here with me every week to have fun. I love you guys. And if you are new, thank you for joining. You want to meet up with us every single week. Sadie will put how you watch the past episodes on our YouTube as well. She will stay here a little bit so you can get all the information and have your conversations amongst each other. Adam, thank you so much. I'm going to corral you to come back on. It's like a word corral, the hat, the corral. Did you see the fun?
You betcha. Yes, love to be back.
Was it
Always
woo
fun.
doggies?
Oh, so I have to say goodbye. Thank you,
All right.
everybody, for watching
Thank you,
Small
everybody.
Talk with
Bye,
your
guys.
bye.
All right.
All right, guys, so I'm going to stay on a little bit longer just so you guys can do some link copying. Let me know if you need any information. As always, it is great to be here. It is a great way to have that middle of the week fun, right? Okay, so yeah, right. Sarah, thank you so much. I mean, I'm gonna throw myself in the we part. I'm going with the European thing of we. But yeah, like I said, if you enjoy what you do and you feel like you're doing something good, it just radiates, right? I'm like, we had so much fun today. So definitely let me know if you need anything. I was holding off putting those literacy links just because they're so long. So let me put those right back there for you because that way you don't have to scroll all the way to the top. But let me know if you need anything. If you are not yet a client of the SBDC, definitely do join. It is a no-cost service. Imagine you get Lori as your, dedicated business advisor, or you can get Adam as your dedicated business advisor because, as we say, we have many, many experts in our network over here, and they all want to help you out. So imagine, like, we all have that vibe of what can we do to help you today? So if you are not a client, please join. It is no cost to you and you get one-on-one business consultation. And if we do not know the answer, we will get you the right answer. So on that note, I know Brenda. Oh yeah, no, you know what, Brenda? I actually might look for this link myself because I want to see Lori being interviewed, but I think she was interviewed for ABC News. So that just happened yesterday. So maybe I'm just going to do a little Google search, but someone put in the chat, and I think she put it to hosts and panelists that they saw her, on ABC. So I was like, oh, let's see. I'm like, I want to see how they quoted Lori there. Alrighty, guys. So I'm gonna put myself on mute so you guys can go ahead and click on all the links over here. So like I said, go ahead. Click on everything so I don't close this out for you because once we thank you, Sarah. You have an awesome day too. Yeah, like I said, we're here to help. Lots of fun help for you guys so we can help you in any way, shape, or form. As you can see, we don't take ourselves too seriously, but we have very impactful information for you. Like, why can't we, enjoy ourselves where we're talking about some really deep topics, right? Why does everything have to be so, we can have fun while we're growing our business over here. So definitely let me know if you need anything. Sign up for Lori's webinars. If you guys want to check out any of the past shows in case maybe this is your first time with us and you're like, what is this Small Biz Talk all about? Check out some of our past shows. I know it just recently got uploaded, so definitely check it out. Let us know if you have any questions. And as you can tell, I can talk on and on forever. So I'm just going to put myself on mute. Let me know if you need anything else, okay?